Welcome to the third lecture of module 2. In this lecture, we shall discuss about the different methods for slicing the object for 3D printing. We are going to discuss about the classification of the slicing methods based on the direct and indirect slicing, and then uniform and adaptive slicing, and then horizontal and conformal slicing. In detail, then we shall discuss about the uniform slicing of STL files, and hence we shall discuss about the generation of contours through the slicing and the organization of the contours after slicing. Briefly, we shall also discuss about the adaptive slicing of STL files. So, based on the data input, the slicing methods are classified into two categories. Either it is indirect slicing or direct slicing. Direct slicing is the slicing of a part obtained in a suitable format from any CAD format without the use of any intermediate format. The model is generally stored in the form of analytical curves or mathematical definitions. Since the exact model is used for slicing in this case, all the part features can be accurately produced. The slicing module can be either inside or outside the CAD environment. For example, what you are seeing in this diagram, this is the front view of a sphere, and you can see that it is an accurate representation of the sphere. Directly, we are slicing the same object without converting it to an intermediate object or intermediate CAD format, that may be the STL file. Directly, the accurate CAD model is sliced in this case. These horizontal lines what you are seeing here are the slicing planes, and the intersection between these slicing planes and the object is taken. An example maybe for this particular slice is highlighted here. The intersection between the horizontal plane and the sphere at this particular level is going to be a circle. Like I said, these CAD formats could be like IGS, step file, or Parasolid, or any other format which is supported by a CAD package. Then you can see that there is no tessellation of the object or the contours which we are getting by the intersection. The other method is called as indirect slicing. Indirect slicing basically involves the conversion of CAD model to an intermediary format for slicing, and the STL file format is the most popular one for this particular case. We know that why STL file is usually used, because the STL file is usually represented in a very simple manner. So, let me take the same example which I have considered here, which is a sphere. This is the accurate representation of the sphere, maybe in some format like IGS, step and Parasolid. Then this format is first converted to STL file. Depending on the number of triangles we are using, the model will be close to the actual model. Here, as number of triangles are used less, you can see that it looks like a polygon. Now, of course, we can do the slicing of the same object like we did in the earlier case. These are the slicing planes, and hence the intersection between the slicing plane and the object will be taken. As a result, as it is not a very accurate representation of the object, the sliced contours may also be not really the circle which we are getting in the real case. Here again it may be some polygon, collection of basically lines. It is obvious, you can observe it through this example as well. It is a representation of a sphere by the STL file, and anytime if you take intersection at any particular level, you can see that you will get nothing but the polygon. The other classification for slicing is based on the layer thickness. Either we are using uniform layer or we are using adaptive layer thickness. The uniform slicing is the slicing of the part with the uniform layer thickness, while the adaptive slicing is the slicing of the part with the variable layer thickness across the build direction to achieve certain objectives. As you can see in these examples, this particular case shows the uniform slicing. Here the thickness of each and every slice is same. You can see that if it is D here, it is everywhere same. While in the case of adaptive slicing, you can see the thickness is varying. Here it is same, but if required, you can see the layer thickness is reduced here. The reason of reducing the layer thickness could be different, and that we will discuss slightly in the end of this lecture. But you can appreciate immediately one thing, that if I am using uniform slicing, some of the features are missed here. I am not able to replicate these complicated features in the final object. While if I am using adaptive slicing for certain zone, means I am using different layer thickness for certain zone, I am able to capture these features nicely. Next classification of slicing is usually done based on the shape of the layers. The layers can be just horizontal or it can be conformal to the base. In other words, the horizontal slicings are also called as planar slicing, and conformal slicing is also called as non-planar slicing. So, the horizontal slicing, which is also called as planar slicing, uses flat surfaces to slice the object and deposit each layer on the planar pre-built surface. And obviously, the pre-built surface should be flat substrate in this case. It utilizes 2.5 degrees of freedom for depositing the material. Why 2.5 degrees of freedom? It is because when we are depositing, for example, in this plane, the end effector or the deposition gun will move back and forth, hence 2 degrees of freedom required here, maybe in x direction and y direction. And then after completion of this particular layer, this head will move up by a certain amount and then it will deposit in on that particular z level. So, x and y are continuously changing while depositing the material, while z is changing, but it is intermittent motion. It is not continuously changing. Hence, it is called as 2 axis corresponding to xy and 0.5 axis corresponding to z axis. Therefore, 2.5 degrees of freedom are required usually to add the material in the case of horizontal slicing. Now, let us consider an example of realizing the spherical object by horizontal slicing. Here you can see that there is a substrate, and on this substrate the flat layers are deposited like this. As a result, you will have some staircase effect obviously, and if required later on one can finish it to get the final desired object. This is an example of conventional horizontal slicing or planar slicing. Now, let us consider the case of conformal slicing. The conformal slicing is also known as non-planar slicing. In this case, the conformal slicing uses curved surfaces to slice the object and deposit each layer on a non-planar pre-built surface. Non-planar pre-built surface means curved surfaces or curved substrates. It utilizes usually high degrees of freedom than 2.5, which is required in the case of horizontal slicing. This particular slicing methodology is very much inspired from the nature. As you can see, some of the objects built in nature here on this slide, one is this and another is this. These objects are built in layer by layer manner, but the layers are conformal to the previous layer or the substrate. Here you can see this onion, this is the pre-built surface and the rest of the layers are conformal to it. They are not added in a horizontal manner. A very similar example is shown here. Now, let us consider and extend this analogy for realizing the spherical object. Now in that case, this will be the substrate. Instead of having a flat substrate, here the substrate will be also non-planar, and hence on this substrate now the conformal layers are deposited. Conformal layers will be nothing but in the spherical manner like this. Here now one can observe that the deposition direction is keeps on changing. Right now, if you are depositing the material at this particular point, the deposition direction is this. Now if you are depositing at this point, this will be the deposition direction or build direction, and hence it will keep on changing when we realize or when we build or we deposit the material. You can see one of the benefit of this conformal slicing immediately in this example, that the shape which we are producing is accurately same what we desire. There may not be any finishing operation required for this particular case. So this was the classification based on the shape of layer. Next is the classification based on the approach. There could be 4 different types. First could be top bottom approach, bottom top approach, negative tolerance approach and positive tolerance approach. Let us consider an example to understand the different types of approach. We want to build this object, and to build this object, if I am using bottom top approach, how it will work? It will realize the object, or it will add the material by extruding the contours from the top to bottom. Let me just consider, these are the slicing planes what you are seeing here in the blue color, and this is the build direction. Now it is obvious that at this particular point or at this particular point we will get some contours. Now how should we extrude them? Should we extrude them above or should we extrude them below? Different type of extrusion will give you different types of results. Let us consider first the top down approach or top bottom approach. In this case, we shall project the intersecting contours from top surface or top slice to the bottom slice like this. So from the top slice, the projection of the contours will be on the bottom slice. So this is how your object will look like. Now let us consider the bottom top approach. In that case, the contours obtained on the bottom will be extruded towards the top. It can be seen easily with the same example here. So now I am getting these intersecting contours, it is extruded upward. Now again this is extruded upward. One can observe in these two cases that here we are depositing actually the less material, right? And here we are depositing actually more material. While in this case, which is top bottom approach, for this particular object we are depositing less material here and excess material here. This mixture we are getting because we are not really bothered about the tolerance right now. But there are other two approaches, those take care of the tolerance in the object. If we are considering negative tolerance, in that case the object will be built like this. Means each time the projection of the slicing contour will be in such a way that the extruded contour will remain inside the actual part, and hence you can see there will be always some less material added or printed than the actual one. Now this is the case for positive tolerance. Here one can see the slicing contours will be projected in such a way that the deposited part will give you the excess material than the actual part. They both have their own benefits. For example, if we are using the positive tolerance, then this extra material can be removed later on by some post processing like finish milling or grinding. While the negative tolerance is preferred when there is no availability of the removing the excess material, and these gaps are usually filled by some post processing such as wax coating. Let us now discuss in detail about the slicing of the STL files. We have already seen if we are slicing the STL file, the methodology is called as indirect slicing. Why? Because we are creating an object in different format utilizing a CAD package such as IGS, STEP or Parasolid or anything, and then we are converting it to STL file, and then that STL file is used to create the or to obtain the slice data. We are going to discuss in detail about the indirect slicing first. So, our objective will be to determine the contours through the slicing, and we are going to study in detail the indirect slicing method which utilizes the STL files. What you are seeing here is an example of cube. It is represented by the STL file, and hence the triangles are also visible here. For example, I am going to slice this cube at a particular height, maybe at Zi. So, at Zi I have created a plane. Now, my objective is to obtain the intersection between this plane and this STL file. So, if I am representing this by plane P, and this is a collection of surfaces nothing but the solid, hence the objective is to obtain the intersection between the solid and the plane. As a result, I should get nothing but the contour. So, as the intersection will be nothing but the contour, you can see the exploded view of the same STL file. Now, the plane is not there, but the intersecting lines are quite visible. Here, if I consider this particular face, these will be the intersecting points, and a collection of these points will give me nothing but line. In a similar fashion, if I consider this face of the cube, and the intersection between the plane and the face will give me nothing but these points, and the collection of these points will give me nothing but the contour, which is nothing but here line. In a similar fashion, this line I will obtain by the intersection of this face with this plane, and this line is obtained when we are taking intersection with of the cube with this plane. Now, if we are collecting these curves together to form a contour, it will look something like this. Here you can see these are the intersecting points, and hence they are forming a closed loop contour. It can be noticed that all the time if you are having a valid CAD model, you will get the closed contours. You will never get an open contour during the slicing. For example, if you are getting the slicing, it will never happen that you will get the contour or you will get the intersection like this. If that is happening, that means your STL file is not a valid file. When it can happen? Let us consider the case when there is no triangle. If there is no triangle here, that means there is a gap, and hence if you take the intersection at this level, you will get an open contour. As it is not a valid solid, these type of cases should be avoided. So, basically, in the other words, I can say the slicing methodology, particularly the indirect slicing methodology, is nothing but the intersection between the lines and the triangles. The line means the line corresponding to the plane, because these are the horizontal planes. We are discussing only the uniform slicing. So, these are the lines, and this is nothing but the triangle. If we are able to understand the intersection between the line and triangle, then we will be easily able to find out the intersecting contours. So, this is the generalized methodology for slicing. The first step in slicing is to define the layer thickness, and I am defining it by D here. Then we have to obtain the minimum and maximum value of the Z coordinates from the CAD model, which is nothing but our STL file. it is very easy to obtain because it is nothing but the collection of triangles, and to obtain the maximum and minimum value of z, if you are using MATLAB, you need to just use the formula max for the particular vector for particular array to obtain the maximum or minimum value of the z coordinate. The next step is to create the ith slicing plane at a height zi equals to zi minus 1 plus d. Now, it depends what will be the value of zi minus 1. If you are using the bottom top approach, zi minus 1 will be nothing but the minimum z. If you are using top down approach, then z minus 1 will be nothing but the z max. And also in that case, this sign will change because you are coming down each time in that case. Let me consider this particular example. This is going to be, for example, this particular triangle is having a z coordinate with z max, and maybe on the bottom side somewhere there will be z minimum. As my build direction is this, that is nothing but plus z direction, I will create my first slicing plane at a particular height, and that will be called as zi. So, any intermediate plane is represented here, and the height from here is nothing but zi. Now, we are going to see that not all the triangles are intersecting with the plane. Some of the triangles, those are above, for example, these triangles are not intersecting with this ith slicing plane, and on the bottom also there are some triangles, those are not intersecting with the ith slicing plane. We have to identify these triangles, and this particular algorithm usually called as triangle shorting algorithm. Let us consider our case again. I am saying that if I am slicing at this particular level, then of course only these triangles are of our interest. The triangles above and triangles below are of no use. So, like I said, we need to then short the triangles appropriately, and the algorithm corresponding to that is called as triangle shorting or grouping algorithm. Once we identify the triangle those are intersecting with the plane, we need to find out the intersection between the triangle and the plane, which is nothing but the problem we just discussed, the intersection between the triangle and the line. There could be several cases for intersecting the triangle with the plane, that we will discuss soon. Then next step is to short the edges to form the polygon, because we are getting the intersection between the triangle and the plane, and these lines may not be appropriately kept. Then we need to run an algorithm which makes sure that it is forming a closed polygon. Then the next step is to organize the contours. Why it is important? For example, you have a contour which is having multiple contours inside as well. You have to identify where the material is and where there is no material. To identify this, we have to appropriately organize these contours, and usually that is called as contour organization algorithms. And then if required, we do the offsetting of contours to give the machining allowances if required. Let us now discuss the triangle shorting algorithm. What you are seeing here, 10 different cases for the position of triangle with respect to the slicing plane. It could be that the one vertex of the triangle is above the slicing plane and two vertices are below the slicing plane. Or it could be a reverse case, like two vertices are above the slicing plane and one vertex is below the slicing plane. Or it could be one vertex is above the slicing plane and another vertex is below the slicing plane, and the third vertex is exactly on the slicing plane. The fourth case could be that the two vertices are above the slicing plane and one vertex is exactly on the slicing plane. Similarly, Another case could be one vertex is exactly on the slicing plane and two vertices are below the slicing plane. The sixth case could be two vertices are exactly on the slicing plane and one vertex is above the slicing plane. Then a reverse of this could be possible, like two vertices are exactly on the slicing plane and one vertex is below the slicing plane. Then the eighth case could be that all three vertices are above the slicing plane, or the ninth case where all three vertices are below the slicing plane. Please note that in this case, the triangles are not participating in the slicing operation because these triangles are of not our interest. The 10th case could be all three vertices are in the slicing plane. Now, let us discuss what we need to do in these cases. For the case 1 and case 2, you need to record the intersecting points. The intersecting points are nothing but the intersection between this line and the horizontal plane and this line and the horizontal plane. There are total 2 such points and we need to record these intersecting points. The same thing will be applicable for case 2 as well. Then for case 3, we need to record one intersecting point and one vertex itself, because this vertex is on the plane. The fourth and fifth cases we really need not to store, because in these cases only one vertex is on the plane, and hence in this case these datas are redundant, because definitely there will be a triangle nearby and that will give us the useful information. Case 6th and 7th, in this case we need to store just two vertices, those are exactly lying on the slicing plane. And as I said, for case 8 and 9 we need not to do anything, because these two triangles either above the slicing plane or below the slicing plane and hence not participating in the slicing operation. In the case 10, when all three points are on the slicing plane, we need to record all three vertices. Now let us see how we can find out the intersection between a triangle and the horizontal plane, because vertices is already given in our database, but we have to identify the point corresponding to the intersection. So let us consider a triangle in which there is a line AB which is having vertices with coordinates x1, y1, z1 and x2, y2, z2. Now there is a plane at a height zi from 0, 0, 0 and it is intersecting with the line AB at point P. Of course, we can easily write the equation for this particular line. It is nothing but z equals to zi. And also we can write down the equation of line AB. The equation of line AB can be written as x minus x1 divided by x2 minus x1 equals to y minus y1 divided by y2 minus y1, and it will be equals to z minus z1 divided by z2 minus z1, and these terms will be equal to a constant, let us say it as t. Now we have to find out the parameter t in such a way that we will be able to obtain the point P, and we know that this point P is common on this particular line and on this particular line. Hence, let us put z equals to zi, that is the equation of this line, the black line, and put it in equation of the line AB, and hence what we will get, t equals to zi minus z1 divided by z2 minus z1. Once we know the t, we can easily find out the coordinates of point P. Those will be xp, yp and zp. xp will be equals to x1 plus t into x2 minus x1, yp will be equals to y1 plus t into y2 minus y1, and zp equals to z1 plus t into z2 minus z1. It is obvious, if I will put the value of t here, zp will be nothing but zi. So, this is how you can easily find out the intersection between a triangle and line. Now, you have all the data with you. You have the intersection points as well as you have the vertices. As per the appropriate case which we have seen, you can store the appropriate data such as vertices or intersection points. Once we have the appropriate data points, we need to create the lines, because ultimately we are going to get a polygon and that is consisted of lines. Now, let us consider again these 10 cases and let us try to understand how we can form the edges through that. For case 1, 2 and 3, where we were having 2 intersection points for case 1 and 2 and 1 intersection point and 1 vertices, we can easily create a line connecting these 2 points, because here you have 2 points corresponding to each triangle. You have to just create a line, and you know that how to write a equation of line passing through 2 points. Like I said earlier, for the case 4 and 5, you need not to do anything, because only the vertex is lying on the horizontal plane and this data may be redundant if we save. However, other triangles will fulfill this requirement later on. The case 6th and 7th, here in this case there will be no intersection points, only you have to create line that will be passed through the 2 vertices. Those will be lying on the horizontal plane. Also, you need not to do anything for the case 8 and 9, because either the triangles are above the horizontal plane or the triangles are below the horizontal plane and not participating in the slicing operation. Next, you have to save the closest point for the line where all 3 are. When all 3 points are lying on the horizontal plane, like in the 10th number case, you have to save the closest points for the line and obtain the line from the triangle itself. Also, it is very easy to write the code for all these 10 cases. Like for example, for the case 1, if I will show you, you have to just find out the triangles, those are fulfilling the relationship, like if the V1 is greater than Zi and V3 is less than Zi and V2 is also less than Zi. If this condition is satisfied, then that means this is the case. Like this, you can write the code for all these 10 cases and obtain the case appropriately. Now, let us discuss, once we have all the lines with us, we have to now appropriately arrange these lines in such a way that we obtain the contours. The edges which are computed just now have to be now shorted to form a continuous contour. Let us consider that each line which I just explained is consisted of 2 points, and let us call it this first point as P1 and the second point as P2. The coordinates of these lines will be given as x1, y1, and these coordinates will be x2, y2. If it is ith edge, then a superscript will be written here like I. Now, let us discuss how we can short these edges appropriately. For the ith edge, compare the coordinate of AND point. Let us consider this AND point, that is P2 x2i comma y2i, and compare it with the start point of other edges. Those have not been shorted yet. Let us assume that we are going to consider the jth line. we are picking this jth line randomly from the database. If the coordinate P2 is equals to this P1 coordinate of jth line, then in that case we have to pick this jth line and appropriately kept it just besides the ith line. Hence, this jth line now will become I plus 1th line. If the P2 which we have picked is not matching with any of the edges, then we have to go for step 2. In that case, for the ith edge, compare the coordinate of P2, which is the picked point, with the end point, which is P2, not P1 now, of jth line, which is randomly picked. Now, if this P2 is equals to the end point of another line, which is randomly picked, then in that case, you have to change the position of I plus 1th line with jth line in the matrix, and also you have to exchange the position of coordinate of the line. In that way, you will be able to end up getting a matrix like this, and all these edges will be shorted. Let us consider this case and try to see this option. So, if this is the P1 and this is P2 of ith line, then this is the I plus 1th line, and this is again the P1 point for I plus 1th, and this is P2 for I plus 1th line. Here you can see the P2 point of ith edge is equals to the P1 point of I plus 1th edge, and like this all the lines are appropriately aligned to form the closed loop contour. Let us try to understand this with the help of a simple problem. Assume that we have the 4 edges like edge number 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we are going to put them in an appropriate manner in a matrix A. So, this is my matrix A, and it is consisted of the lines. Here will be the point P1 and here will be the point P2. Let us start with this particular line, and hence I will have 1 and 1. These are the coordinates of P1, and the P2 coordinates are 1, 2. Let us now pick the second point of the ith line, and now compare it with the first point of all the lines if it is matching. But what we can see, 1, 2 is not matching anywhere. It is not matching with this, it is not matching with this, it is not matching with this as well. Hence, we have to go for step 2, that is, try to match this point with the second point of the line. It is not matching with this, but it is matched with this. That means our next line will be this, but in a reverse manner. But in a reverse manner means I am going to redefine this line and I will replace these points. Hence, the point P1 will be now 1, 2 and P2 will be my 2, 3 for line number 3, and hence now I will put it here. Hence, this is 1, 2 and this is 2, 3. Now, let us consider this particular line. This is my ith line now, and we will try to match the end point, that is 2, 3 with the other lines, with the other line's first point, and it has matched with this one. And obviously, we can now choose this particular line and we can write it directly, no need to exchange also. Hence, next line is this. Now, let us consider the second point of the second line, or this ith line, this particular line now, and compare it. We can see that the P2 is appropriately matching with the first point of the fourth line, and hence we can write 5, 4 and 1, 1. You can easily verify that this point should be same as the first point, and hence it is forming a closed loop contour. Now, if you will draw, for example, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, 5, 6 and similarly here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is my point, and then 1, 2, 1, 2. This is my one line. Next line is consisted of 1 comma 2, that means this point, and 2 comma 3. 2 comma 3, that means somewhere here. And now the next line is 2 comma 3, that means this point, and 5 comma 4. 5 comma 4 is here, 5 and 4. So, like this. Then next line is 5 comma 4, that is this line, and 1 comma 1. Hence, this is your closed loop contour, and you have shorted it in this manner, and you have shorted it in such a way that you are moving on the contour in a clockwise manner. If you want to reverse the direction, you need to just play with the matrix, and hence you can reverse the direction of the points, and you can make it counterclockwise. The importance of having the contour in clockwise or counterclockwise manner, we will see very soon. The importance of having the contours in clockwise or counterclockwise manner is for identifying the region where the material is and where the material is not there. However, it is a very complicated problem. To resolve this problem in an appropriate systematic manner, a data structure has to be developed. So, we have now learned how to create the contours. We have to arrange these contours appropriately in such a way that we will be able to understand the presence or absence of the material in the contour. We will discuss these topics in the upcoming lecture. Thank you very much.